Imagine this. It's Father's Day. You've worked your whole life providing for your daughter. The late nights, the sacrifices, the endless love. And when the day comes, she hands her father-in-law a cruise package for two and gives you a single lottery ticket. Now imagine scratching that ticket and realizing you've just won $120 million. Stay with me, because this isn't just about luck. It's about betrayal, sweet revenge, and a daughter who learned the hard way that blood runs deeper than in-laws. If you've ever been underestimated, disrespected, or treated like you don't matter, this story will hit home. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and buckle up, because this is one of the most jaw-dropping, emotionally satisfying revenge stories you'll ever hear. My name's Tom. I'm 61 years old, widowed, and for most of my life, my daughter Emily has been my world. When her mom passed away 10 years ago, I did everything I could to fill that void. I learned to braid hair, cooked her favorite pasta even when I was bone-tired, and worked 2 jobs just to make sure her college fund stayed untouched. But over the years, something changed. Emily got married to a man named Jason, and along with Jason came his parents. His father, Richard, was the kind of guy who liked to show off. He wore tailored suits to backyard barbecues and dropped words like portfolio and dividend into every conversation, and for some reason, Emily adored him. It hurt. I could feel her pulling away from me, bit by bit. Fast forward to Father's Day. We were all gathered at Emily and Jason's house. Balloons, barbecue, laughter. The gifts started being handed out. Jason gave his dad a sleek envelope. Richard opened it and announced proudly, "A 7-day cruise, for me and my wife." Everyone clapped. Emily beamed. Then she turned to me. She handed me a small card with a scratch-off lottery ticket inside. She laughed nervously and said, "Who knows? Maybe you'll get lucky, Dad." I forced a smile. Inside, I felt my chest tighten. A cruise for him, and a $5 ticket for me. I wasn't just disappointed. I felt invisible. Later that night, when the guests had left, I sat alone at my kitchen table. I scratched the ticket slowly, more out of boredom than hope. And then I froze. Numbers lined up. Symbols matched. My hands started shaking. I checked, rechecked, called the hotline. It was real. That silly little ticket, the one meant as a joke, was worth $120 million. At first, I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to run straight to Emily and show her. Maybe this would make her proud of me again. Maybe she'd finally look at me the way she looked at Richard. But then, I remembered her face when she handed me that ticket. Careless, almost dismissive, like I was some distant relative instead of the man who raised her. And in that moment, my sadness hardened into resolve. If she saw me as small and insignificant, I would let her live with that choice. I cashed in the ticket quietly with the help of a lawyer. I didn't change much at first. Same old car, same small house. But behind the scenes, I was moving pieces. I paid off my mortgage. I donated secretly to causes I cared about. I even bought a vacation home under a trust. Nothing traced back to me. Meanwhile, Emily and Jason kept inviting me over. At dinners, Richard would brag about his cruise, about his investment wins. And Emily? She'd sit there, eyes sparkling at him, barely looking at me. And every time I just smiled politely, knowing something they didn't. I could buy their entire neighborhood in cash if I wanted. 6 months later, I planned a little retirement celebration. I told Emily I wanted to keep it small, just close family. She didn't seem thrilled, but agreed. She probably assumed I was going to announce I'd sold my beat-up truck or something. When the night came, everyone gathered in my modest backyard. Richard showed up in a fresh suit, of course, ready to soak up the spotlight. I stood up with a glass in my hand. My heart pounded, and I said, "I just wanted to thank you all for coming. A lot has changed in my life recently, and I wanted to share it with the people closest to me." I paused, looked straight at Emily. "You know that lottery ticket you gave me for Father's Day? Well, it was the best gift I've ever received, because it was worth $120 million. The silence was deafening, then gasps. Richard actually choked on his drink. Emily's jaw dropped. Suddenly, everyone wanted to toast me. Richard clapped me on the back like we were old pals. Jason started talking about investment strategies. And Emily, she looked pale. Later, she pulled me aside. "Dad, why didn't you tell me? We could have planned things, done things together." I looked at her. For the first time, I wasn't desperate for her approval. I wasn't the overlooked dad anymore. I was the man who raised her, the man she'd taken for granted. And I was finally standing tall. "Emily," I said softly, "I gave you my whole life, and you gave me a lottery ticket. That told me everything I needed to know." Her eyes filled with tears. But I didn't feel cruel, just free. You know what hurt the most? When Emily handed me that lottery ticket, it wasn't just about the gift itself. It was like every sacrifice I had made as a single dad vanished in that one careless moment. When she was 10, I remember her crying herself to sleep because she missed her mom. I'd sit by her bed, stroking her hair, whispering, "It's just you and me, kiddo." Always. I never dated seriously after my wife passed. I was afraid it would confuse her. I skipped vacations, skipped nights out with friends, because Emily needed braces. Emily needed soccer uniforms. Emily needed stability. So when she stood there beaming at her father-in-law with the cruise package, it felt like she had forgotten all of that. And Richard, oh, Richard loved it. The man smirked at me across the table, almost like he was saying, "See? She values me more than you." He raised his glass of wine and said, "Well, looks like I'll be sending you some postcards from the Caribbean, Tom." I forced a chuckle. But inside, my blood boiled. This wasn't the first time either. At Emily's wedding, Richard gave a big, dramatic speech. He called Emily the daughter he always wanted. He never mentioned me. People clapped. Emily cried tears of joy. And I sat in the corner, invisible. That night after Father's Day, when I scratched that ticket, I swear I almost dropped dead from shock. The first number matched, then the second, then the third. By the time I realized the whole row lined up, my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold the coin. I whispered to myself, "No way. No way this is real." I grabbed my glasses, checked again, called the number on the back. When the operator confirmed it, I just sat there in silence. Do you know what it feels like to go from feeling like nothing to holding $120 million in your hands? It's not joy. It's not even excitement. At first, it's disbelief. Then, it's clarity. I decided right then, no one needed to know. Not yet. If Emily could treat me like the poor, pitiful dad who should be grateful for scraps, then fine. Let her. I drove the same old pickup. I wore the same faded jeans. I smiled politely when Richard bragged about his investments. But behind that smile, I was buying property in cash. Quietly funding scholarships for kids who grew up like Emily, with one parent, struggling. I even took private trips by myself, places Richard bragged about but probably couldn't even afford. And every time Emily ignored me at family dinners to hang on Richard's every word, I just thought, if only you knew. One night at dinner, Richard leaned back in his chair, patting his stomach after dessert. "Emily, sweetheart," he said loudly, "your husband's doing so well. I think a ski trip to Aspen is in order this winter." Emily laughed, glancing at Jason. Then she looked at me and said, "Oh, Dad, maybe you could come by and feed the dog while we're gone." Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile. But inside, I felt like I'd been punched. A ski trip for them, dog sitting for me. And all the while, $120 million sat quietly in my account. By the time 6 months had passed, I knew I had to make a move. So I planned a small retirement celebration. Just family. Nothing flashy. When Richard arrived, he scanned my backyard like he was appraising it. "Cozy little place you got here, Tom," he said, sipping his expensive whiskey. Emily barely looked at me while fussing over her father-in-law's chair cushion, and I stood there holding my secret like a loaded gun. When it was time, I clinked my glass. "Thank you all for being here," I began. I just wanted to share some news. You know, life has a funny way of surprising us. Sometimes it humbles you. Sometimes it hands you exactly what you deserve. I looked right at Emily. She shifted nervously. You remember that lottery ticket you gave me? Well, turns out it wasn't just a joke. It was worth 120 million. The air froze. Jason's fork clattered onto his plate. Richard's jaw went slack. Emily covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God." Then the babbling started. Richard, 120 million. Incredible, Tom. We should talk about financial planning. Jason, wow, Dad, you could really expand on that. Emily, why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have done so much together. But I just sipped my drink, calm as ever. Later, Emily cornered me in the kitchen. Dad, she said, her voice trembling, I didn't mean to make you feel unappreciated. That lottery ticket, it was supposed to be fun. Please, let's talk about what we can do with the money. I set my glass down, looked her in the eye. Emily, I already know what I'm going to do with it. I've spent my whole life giving you everything. And when the moment came, you gave me a scratch-off ticket. That told me how you see me. And now, I see you just as clearly. Her eyes welled with tears. Dad, please. But I walked away. For the first time, not as the father desperate for his daughter's love, but as a man who finally understood his worth. The revenge wasn't about flaunting the money. It wasn't about buying a mansion or a sports car. It was about finally holding the power. Richard, the man who thought he was king of the family, had been reduced to silence. Emily, the daughter who thought I was small, realized I was the biggest presence in the room. And the sweetest part? They had to live with the knowledge that the gift they thought was worthless turned out to be my golden ticket to freedom. Before I tell you what happened after the reveal, let me take you back. When Emily was little, we had a tradition. Every Friday night we'd grab takeout, sit on the living room floor, and watch old Disney movies. She'd fall asleep against my chest, clutching my shirt like I was her anchor. Back then, I was her hero. She'd draw little crayon pictures of us holding hands with "Me and Daddy Forever" scribbled underneath. So how did we go from that to her looking right past me in favor of another man she'd only known a handful of years? That's the kind of heartbreak money can't fix. Richard wasn't just arrogant, he was strategic. He knew exactly how to make me feel small. At Emily's college graduation, he walked up to me, shaking my hand with that smug grin. You must be proud, Tom. Raising her all by yourself. I suppose it's nice to finally see her marry into, well, stability. He said stability like it was a gift I could never give. Emily didn't catch it. She just laughed along. But I caught it. Every single dig, every sideways comment. Winning $120 million didn't change me overnight. But slowly, I started tasting freedom. I took private trips, not flashy, not Instagram-worthy, just quiet escapes. A cabin in Switzerland, a beach villa in Greece. No one knew. I'd sit by the fire or on the sand sipping wine, thinking, this is mine. They don't even realize how different my life is now. Meanwhile, Emily was still texting me to pick up milk for her when I came over. Richard was still bragging about his golf club memberships, and I just smiled. Let them think I was ordinary, because nothing is more powerful than holding a secret that big. One evening, about 3 months after the win, I went over for dinner. Richard was in rare form. So, Tom, he said, swirling his glass, have you thought about retirement yet? Or do you still enjoy, keeping busy? Emily chuckled. Dad loves staying active, don't you? I just smiled. Oh, I've been planning for retirement. Don't worry. Richard smirked. Well, if you need advice on investments, I could point you toward a few things. Inside, I wanted to laugh. The man giving me financial advice didn't know I could buy and sell his entire portfolio without blinking. Instead, I just nodded. Thanks, Richard. I'll keep that in mind. That's when the idea hit me. What if I used the very setting where Richard loved to flaunt his superiority to turn the tables? What if Emily and her in-laws learned the truth not in a lawyer's office, not through a bank call, but face-to-face when they least expected it? So I planned the retirement party. but not just as an announcement. No, it was my stage. Backyard, string lights, cheap folding chairs, modest food. I wanted them to feel comfortable, smug even. Richard joked as he arrived. "Ah, Tom, you sure know how to keep things simple. Nothing wrong with that, I suppose." Emily fussed over his plate like he was royalty. Jason cracked open a beer and asked if I needed help covering costs for the party. I let it all roll off me, because I knew what was coming. When I finally stood up to speak, I took a long pause. Let them lean in. Let Richard smirk. "You all know I've been thinking about retirement, and well, life has a funny sense of humor. Remember that lottery ticket Emily gave me for Father's Day?" Richard chuckled. "Oh yes, your big shot chance." I smiled. Turns out, it was the winning ticket, worth $120 million. Silence. A fork dropped. Emily's face drained of color. Jason stammered, "Did you say 120? Richard's smirk died on his lips. His eyes darted to Emily, then back to me, and I savored it. Every second of their disbelief. Richard was the first to recover. He clapped me on the shoulder like we were lifelong friends. "Tom, that's incredible. You know, with the right management, we could double, maybe triple your earnings," Jason chimed in. "Yeah, Dad, we should totally get together, talk investments, properties." Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. "Why didn't you tell me, Dad? We could have planned something amazing together." For years, I had dreamed of those words, amazing together. But now, they rang hollow. I just smiled and said, "I've already made plans." Later in the kitchen, Emily tried again. "Dad, I didn't mean to hurt you with the lottery ticket. It was just supposed to be fun. Please, you know I love you." I looked at her, really looked. "Emily, when you gave Richard that cruise, your face lit up. You looked at him like he was the father you always wanted. And then you handed me a scratch-off like I was just an afterthought. That's not love, that's pity." She shook her head. "No, Dad, it's not like that." I cut her off. "I raised you. Alone. I was there every night when you cried yourself to sleep. I worked my hands raw so you could go to college, and you forgot." Her tears spilled over. "Please, don't shut me out." I took a deep breath. "Emily, I'm not shutting you out. I'm finally letting myself live. For me." In the weeks that followed, I kept my distance. Richard called twice trying to help me with investments. I never answered. Jason sent me a link to a vacation package we could all do together. I ignored it. Emily came by once, standing on my porch with tear-streaked cheeks. I listened, but I didn't cave. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't living for someone else's approval. I bought myself a beautiful lake house. Quiet, peaceful, surrounded by trees. My kind of paradise. And when I sit on that porch, sipping coffee at sunrise, I don't feel bitter. I don't feel lonely. I feel free. Winning $120 million changed my life. But the real win wasn't the money. It was realizing my worth. All those years I thought if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, Emily would love me back the same way. But love doesn't work like that. It's not a transaction. Sometimes the people you give your heart to will hand you a lottery ticket and walk away laughing. And sometimes fate lets you scratch that ticket and remind them, and yourself, who you truly are. There were nights when Emily was still a child that I'll never forget. I worked as a mechanic during the day, but I also drove deliveries at night. There were evenings when I'd stumble home at midnight, my hands blistered and covered in grease, and I'd peek into her room. She'd be asleep, clutching that little teddy bear her mom gave her before she passed. And I'd whisper, "Everything I'm doing, sweetheart, it's all for you." I never once thought about myself. No vacations, no big purchases. My whole life revolved around making sure she had more than I ever did. So when she treated me like an afterthought on Father's Day, that pain wasn't small. It was 30 years of sacrifice suddenly erased. Let's go back to that retirement party for a moment. When I announced the $120 million, Richard's face turned red. He forced a laugh. "Ha! You're pulling our leg, Tom. No way you'd keep something like that a secret. I smiled. I already cashed it in. Want to see the bank statement? The color drained from his face. Emily gasped. Jason leaned forward eagerly. Jason, Dad, think of what we could do together. Real estate, investments, building something huge. Me. Jason, I already built something. My life. And I'm happy with it. Richard chimed in again. Tom, listen to me. Money like that can vanish if you don't have the right management. I could help you. I cut him off with a chuckle. Richard, I've managed to keep it safe for 6 months without your help. I think I'll be fine. The silence after that, delicious. Later in the kitchen, Emily broke down completely. Dad, I didn't realize how it looked. I love Richard like family, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. Please, let me help you. I want to be part of this. Her voice cracked. Tears rolled down her cheeks. For a split second, the little girl clutching her teddy bear flashed in my mind. I wanted to hug her, tell her everything was okay. But then I remembered her laughter when she handed me that ticket. The way she lit up for Richard's gift and barely looked at me. And I realized something. She only wanted me now because of the money. I said softly, Emily, I'll always love you. But love isn't about showing up when there's money on the table. It's about respect. And that's something you stopped giving me a long time ago. Her sobs filled the kitchen, but I didn't bend. Not this time. Over the next few weeks, the real fun began. Jason started calling me constantly. Dad, listen. I've been researching investment opportunities. We could start a family business. Keep the wealth in the family, you know. Richard even came to my house unannounced once. He pulled up in his luxury car, wearing his gold watch. Tom, he said smoothly, you don't want to make rash decisions. Men like us, we have to think about legacy. Imagine what we could do together. 2 fathers guiding the next generation. I looked him dead in the eye and said, Richard, I've been guiding the next generation my whole life, alone. You just showed up for the fun part. He had no response. It's been 5 years since that day. Richard, he made some bad investments, tried to flip properties during a downturn, lost most of his savings. These days I hear he sold his fancy golf club membership and downsized his house. Jason and Emily, still together but struggling. Jason's business never took off and they've been chasing money ever since. Emily tried reaching out a few more times, apologizing, asking to reconnect. I keep it cordial. I'll meet her for coffee once in a while, but I never give her money, because love built on dollar signs isn't love at all. And me? I live quietly in my lake house. I travel when I want, give generously to causes that matter, and I found peace in ways I never thought possible. The greatest gift that lottery ticket gave me wasn't the money. It was clarity. You see, revenge doesn't always look like slamming doors or shouting matches. Sometimes revenge is simply thriving, living well while the people who underestimated you sit there, realizing they were wrong. My daughter thought a lottery ticket was a joke. Richard thought I was beneath him. Jason thought I could be manipulated. And yet here I am, free, independent, respected. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is silence. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, what is the most disrespectful gift you've ever received? And how would you have handled it if life handed you $120 million? And don't forget to subscribe for more emotionally powerful stories of betrayal, karma, and revenge. Because sometimes, life doesn't just hand you a win. It hands you the perfect chance to prove everyone wrong.